Welcome, my name's Paul Irish. I'm a Sydney-based historian who works with Aboriginal communities researching family and community history.
And my name's Michael Bennett, also living here in Sydney, a historian working with New South Wales Aboriginal communities on native title claims, heritage projects and genealogical studies.
In this video, we're going to have a look at some easy ways to search for information about your ancestors online. You can do this from a computer, from an iPad, or even from a mobile phone. But before we begin, let's just have a think about some of the points that we covered in our earlier videos. Firstly, make sure that before you set out, you know what it is that you're hoping to find. Secondly, make sure that you've got somewhere to keep your notes. This can be in a notebook or it can be on your computer, but just somewhere that you know where to come back to and look for those notes. Also, you'll need somewhere to store the documents that you'll find. This could be electronically on your computer or a folder if you want to print them out and keep them in hard copy. And finally, as always, make sure that you look after yourself while you're doing this research. You might find sad or upsetting information as you're searching, and make sure that you have some time to take out to look after yourself or speak about that with someone that you trust.
So the first thing you're going to have to do is start searching for something. So we've got two easy ways to help you get started with your family history project. That's using Google or another search engine, and also Trove. Googling is a great way to find out what other people might have already written about your family and your ancestors. And Trove, operated by the National Library of Australia, is a phenomenal website that has information about newspapers and photographs as well that can really help to illuminate your story. But a useful tip to keep in mind is that computers aren't mind readers. You have to be able to tell them what to do so that they can come up with information that's useful for you. So we're going to give you a couple of tips to help you in that way as well.
Here's a good example. I've been doing a bit of searching into my family tree. Because my last name is Irish, which is my surname but also the name of people from Ireland, I need a way to tell the computer that I'm searching for someone with the name Irish and not people from the country Ireland. My first ancestors to come to Australia were Charles and Martha Irish, who came to Sydney in the 1840s. But here's what happens if I just type in Charles Irish to Google. I get over 200 million entries, most of which are not about people at all, and certainly not about my ancestor. But there are two things you can always do when you're searching to zoom in on the things that you're most interested in.
Now first, select on Google or whatever search engine you're using, just to look at websites from Australia. Then, put your search in double speech marks, in this case, Charles Irish. That tells the computer only to find the whole name Charles Irish, not just any site with Charles or Irish. And because we know that Charles lived in Sydney, we're going to put that in there too. Now you can see that there are a lot less entries, and some of them are actually about Paul's ancestor.
And that brings us to another thing to think of when you're searching online, and that is finding the balance between searching too wide or too narrow. This is a balance that you will decide depending on what you're searching for and how much time you have. And you'll get a feel for this the more research that you do. Let's have a look at that with our second major online resource, Trove. Trove is a fantastic and world-leading website created by our National Library. It brings together library catalogues and content from across Australia, and recently it has been relaunched to contain some safeguards around cultural sensitivities. You can play around on Trove whenever you like, and there are links on the Royal Australian Historical Society website, where you access this video, that will help you find out more. But we're going to tell you about the two main types of records that you'll most likely want to access: images and newspaper articles.
Trove pulls together photos, sketches and paintings that have been scanned and digitised in collections all around Australia. And it also contains scanned copies of many regional and city newspapers going back 2 centuries. You can search these collections by using keywords, and this is where it is important to balance searching too broad or too narrow. Use the tip we told you about before, putting names into double speech marks. That way, it will look for information about that person. And on Trove, there are lots of ways to narrow down your search, often by location or by date.
Let's go back to my ancestor Charles Irish. If we type in his name here, using our double speech marks, and click search, Trove tells us that it may have some relevant records in any of these categories that you can see across the top of the screen. We're going to look at newspaper articles, so we'll click here, and this tells us that there are 852 results. But just looking at these banner examples up the top, I can see that they're not about my ancestor. So we're going to refine our results using this menu down the right-hand side. The first thing we're going to do is to select only records from New South Wales because I know my ancestor was living in Sydney. The next thing we're going to do is to search only for actual newspaper articles and not advertising. Now we're down to 160 articles. We can also sort them either by relevance according to how closely they match the search term, or by arranging them from the youngest first to the oldest, or the other way round. Usually if you're searching for records of a particular person, you'll want to sort them having the earliest record first, so you can scroll through and look at their life in the chronological order that it was lived. So now we have a list of articles that mention my ancestor Charles Irish, and I can see straight away that there's a couple of relevant ones here. These entries here just give you a little taste of what each article is about and how it mentions the particular person that you're looking for. If we want to actually read the article, we simply click on the top link there, and it takes us through to a scanned copy of the newspaper article that we're interested in. If you read it and you decide that you're interested in saving it to your computer and having a copy, if you go to the menu on the left-hand side and scroll down here to the download button, you simply click here and you can either save that article as an image or as a PDF and store it on your computer.
Now this is all great if you are searching for someone who is fairly well known, and many people will be surprised to find that there are images or newspaper articles of some of their Aboriginal ancestors. But often Aboriginal people are unnamed. Many times their names were not spelled correctly, or they went by several different names. So this is where it is important to take some notes, and if your search does not find anything, try different spellings, or maybe try a search just for their surname at a particular place. When old newspapers are scanned, they sometimes misread words, so don't be discouraged if you don't find something first time around. Think what you want and try and find another way to look for it.
Let's say, for example, that you know your ancestor lived at La Perouse in the 1920s. Another way to search instead of using their name is to search keywords about the place that they lived in. In Trove, if you use the word "and" in capital letters between any search terms that you put in, it will only find things that include all of those search terms. So if we want to find, for example, Aboriginal people and La Perouse, records relating to both of those, we simply type La Perouse using our double speech marks. We type "and" in capital letters and the word Aboriginal, and let's see what happens then. We're going to select newspapers up here, and again we see a whole list of banner articles here that we can scroll down and read. But we want to look at La Perouse in the 1920s. So we're going to, again, go to the right-hand side and refine our results. Again, we will search for records just from New South Wales. That should get rid of some of the ones that are less relevant. We're going to look just for newspaper articles. And there's another search refinement here that we can do for the date of the article. In this case, we're going to click on 1920 to 1929, and now we just have the articles that relate to La Perouse, Aboriginal people in the 1920s. Once again, we can see we've found articles that relate to that, so we can click on them, and again we've got the scanned article there. We can zoom in using these buttons if we want to make it clearer, and we can download using the button on the left hand side. Now, sometimes you're not going to find the name of your actual ancestor in these records, sometimes you will, but either way, you're going to learn something about where and how they were living at particular points in time, and that's valuable too, and you may even pick up other search terms that you can use to find more information.
We can do a similar search with images. Again, type in La Perouse in double speech marks and in capitals and Aboriginal. And this time, from the menu across the top, we're going to select Images, Maps, and Artifacts. And just like before, we're going to refine our results. We're going to select the decade of the 1920s. Now we can see a range of results here. And in this case, we've found a photograph of the La Perouse Aboriginal Reserve taken in 1920. Many images are held in other libraries, so clicking on them will take you to their website, where you can often download a copy for you to keep.
Before you know it, you'll be finding all kinds of information, so you need to remember to stay safe. You'll often be looking at pictures and stories of deceased people, information about very difficult circumstances that some of your ancestors found themselves in. And as we'll keep saying, make sure you keep copies and notes. As you find more and more, you'll probably need to get even more organised to make sure that you don't lose things.
But that's something to think about later. For the time being, just dive into Google or whichever search engine you would like to use and see what you can find. It's an excellent place to start and see what information is already there. You might even find that a distant relative has already researched your ancestor and put some information online.
And have a go on Trove too. Try some searches of newspaper articles and images. Look for particular people in your family line or maybe places that they might have lived. And remember, you can always get help if you get stuck. Good luck!